Hello guys, how's it going today? We are talking about... Sorry, I just vaped there and I vaped indoors. It's kind of taboo to do that now, isn't it? It's kind of taboo to have a single-use vape. I mean, there's really nothing that you can do in life today without upsetting someone or causing some kind of economic or environmental externality that will reverberate somewhere else in the world that I personally won't have to experience. But that's life, dem's the breaks. We're going to be talking about Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his really spineless, tepid, pathetic King's speech. Obviously, he's not the king. It's a bit of paper that he sends to the king and the king reads it out. Very grudgingly, it has to be said, King Charles was forced to say a bunch of things that we know from his previous comments about stuff that he doesn't agree with. So that was very interesting, seeing that relationship between two big institutions in this country. And the optics of that obviously were discussed for days and days and days with not a great deal of analysis of some of the pledges that were made and the actual utility of them, whether they can actually be enacted or whether they're all just part of some big headline grabbing exercise for a government which knows it's on its way out, unless it gets a far right head case like Suella Braverman in the driver's seat. And so one of the pledges that Sunak made in his attempt to pitch himself as being about the party of law and order, because you know the Tories are all about taking responsibility for your bad behaviour as long as you're a poor person or a person of colour or part of some other marginalised group. Not so easy to make the charges land and stick if you're a very wealthy Tory, it has to be said. But basically, he's doing the old trope of saying he's going to get tough on antisocial behaviour. So at the core here, what he's really saying is, we are going to treat one of the symptoms of our economic mismanagement with more political mismanagement. And we are going to promise something that we actually can't deliver because the mismanagement is so endemic that the court system itself has begun to seize up across the UK. Now, of all the areas of divergence that we have across the home nations, the legal systems are the most obvious one. But there are trends that are setting in across the United Kingdom, and it all really just boils down to the following. There are tens of thousands of cases that haven't even gone to court. The prisons are full. Legal professionals have even resorted to industrial action because of their low pay. There are more prisoners on remand now than at any time in half a century. And so with a country that's covered in legal aid deserts where people who want and deserve and have a right to representation, whether they've been accused of a crime or whether they're the complainant in some other dispute, can't get access to justice, why is this not the thing that the boss of the party in law and order is talking about? Because if he's promising tougher sentences for antisocial behaviour, then how does that process actually take place when there are maybe 60,000 cases that are waiting to get into the courts and where there are not enough legal representatives working at the price point that would make them accessible to the sections of the population that we're talking about who might make inquiries about getting a lawyer so that they can be represented in court? This is an example of what the Conservative Party really is all about today, apart from protecting the interests of the wealthy, because they can never protect the interests of the working class except with their kind of go-to folk devil culture war issues, where they're like, yeah, we're going to get trans people, yeah, we're going to get refugees, and then you've got working class people driving to their work and cross infrastructure that doesn't work, public transport that doesn't work, they're stressed out, they're not, and then a Tory talks in a way that appeals to that first surface resentment you have in the morning because you just feel like you're always being bent over a barrel and shafted by everybody. And for some people, that ignites a deep passion to go down a rabbit hole of tangential issues that have nothing to do with the material conditions of their life, and instead are about watching commentators slagging off people who personally annoy their very fickle sensibilities. That is the game in town for the Conservative Party now. So we won't hear very much from them about the sort of economic reform that is required to actually deal with the things that create this fertile ground of chronic stress through which all of this resentment is constantly erupting and then being appropriated politically. We aren't going to hear anything about how we actually have to talk about wealth redistribution in some way in our society. We aren't going to hear anything about the various ways that the Conservative Party is being pulled apart by extremists in its own ranks who couldn't care less about poverty-stricken people in this country, most of whom are in work. And so ultimately, this is just another exhibition of Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party as an institution, the fundamental weakness, the fundamental ravine between what people in this country actually need and what the Conservative Party interpret they can get away with pretending they are going to provide. Here is the fundamental hypocrisy at the core of this. The party of law and order that professes to hold up law and order is not funding the justice system sufficiently to preserve that fundamental right that underscores the entire democratic system, which is access to justice, innocence until proven guilty, the idea that you can be represented in a court of law. So the fundamental integrity of democracy is at stake when a legal system is not adequately resourced. And it's very, very ironic that a politician who claims to be about law and order would use ASBO discourse to distract from the fact that the party of law and order is the biggest threat to law and order, and actually have that through the mouthpiece of a king who is not subject to law and order, and whose brother is not subject to law and order, and whose entire family flouts many of the laws that this country apparently uses as justification for believing itself to be somehow legally and morally superior to other countries. So there's something for you to think about. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, leave some comments. I would love to see some crazy right-wing diatribes in my comments. Brilliant, man. Last week I got accused of funding Hamas for doing a Palestinian medical supplies fundraiser. So it was great to get a bit of insight into that crazy corner of the internet. Bring it on, take it easy, have a great day. Peace.